take one was, no, take two. All right, so human development, prenatal development. All right, so we're just going to kind of talk about kind of some of the things. All right, conception to actual birth is approximately 9 months. Right, that's where we get from conception to we actually have the infant. Right, and you can have what positive and negative influence. Right, we've talked about right what can happen environmentally to the developing child, and then what can happen in that developmental stage. Okay, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. All right. So when the egg, what was that? Did y'all say something? Oh, okay, sorry. When the egg, also the ovum, and a sperm unite, it's the process of fertilization. It results when the single cell will have a total of 46 chromosomes, right? And then it is called the zygote, right? So that's when all the chromosomes meet, and there's 46 now, all right? Then it starts to divide, right? It starts to divide over and over and over again, okay? And that's when the DNA molecules start producing and duplicating and copying and dividing, and then it becomes, guess what it becomes? A baby, right? It becomes a baby, right? That's where the baby happens, right? And so it's a baby, all right? And so that's where kids happen, all right? They don't come from the store, all right? So, all right, yeah. Yes, all right, so, right, but sometimes there's things that happen within this division process, okay? Right, it just doesn't just divide, right, and become one baby. Sometimes the division process, something happens, and we get something which is called twins, right? And monozygotic twins is where you get identical twins. That's where the fertilized egg, one egg splits, and it becomes identical, right? Where there's actually two twins, right? And we have that here at the school, right? We have I can't remember their names. They're not paternal twins, because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But we also have that also at our school as well. Yes, right? They're identical, right? So we have monozygonic twins where there was one fertilized egg, and it split and became two, all right? And then there's also a dizygonic twins where there is two eggs that are fertilized at the same time, and then there's paternal twins, okay? All right? And so, and this is more likely to happen when there's a woman taking like fertility drugs to get pregnant, right? And this can happen more than just two, right? I don't know if you ever heard of a lady, she went by the name Octomom, right? She had like 8 babies at one time. Dude, she was like, she was huge. Anyway, I don't know, it was crazy. Anyway, but she had lots of babies, all right, at one time. All right, but fraternal twins is twice as common as identical twins. All right, it happens a lot more. All right, but sometimes in the twinning process, the mass of cells doesn't completely split. Right, and when the mass of cells doesn't completely split, what do you think happens? What do we get? What do you think happens if the cells don't split for twinning? Conjoined twins, right? Yeah, that's what we get. We get conjoined twins, right? They don't fully split apart. Now, sometimes this is a minor thing where it's just, let's say, skin, right? And then they can go in later and split them, right? But sometimes it's a major thing, right? And if you look in your book, there's actually a section here about Abby and Brittany Hensley, and you've probably seen these girls where they actually share from the waist down. it looks like they have one body and two heads, but they really actually have one girl has control over one leg and one arm, and there's two spinal cords. They have their own set of lungs, own heart, own stomach, and then from the waist down they share. But they each control one arm, one leg, and it looks like they have one body, all right, and two heads, okay, and they live, I think, in England. Well, they're grown up now, and they went to school. They're a teacher, and they teach school. All right, and so it's very interesting. Like they've survived. They live life together. They do things every normal people do. All right, but they're two very different personalities, right? But they're kind of stuck in this one body. All right, and so that's just to think about how the cells and the zygote splits and becomes children. Okay, but there's a germinal period. All right, once the fertilization takes place, the zygote begins dividing and moving down the uterus. This is when things start to develop. Okay. There's a 2-week period that's called the germinal period of pregnancy. The placenta also begins to form during this period. And like the placenta is a specialized organ that provides nourishment and filters away the baby's waste. All right. The umbilical cord also begins to develop at this time. Okay, so this is a period here that is very important. Okay, so during this period, cells begin to differentiate and to develop into specialized cells. Sorry, not skills. Specialized cells. All right. Then the next period we have is the embryonic period. Okay, during this, we have the once firmly attached to the uterus. The developing organism is called the embryo, right? This is the embryonic period. This will last from 2 weeks after conception to 8 weeks. During this time, the cell will continue to specialize and be in various organs and structures of the human infant are becoming more and more, right? By this time, the child is about 1 inch long, right? And is beginning to develop. Organs are beginning to develop. Things are starting to come to life, right? The embryo begins receiving nourishment, right? And these are critical. It's a critical time, right? This is when it becomes hazardous and diseases from the mother, drugs, and other toxins like that can be passed through the placenta to the developing child. Okay? This direct connection can be bad, right? It can be bad. And clearly everything can affect the child. It's a critical period. All right? This is where then those environmental influences can impact the developing child. All right? So you have things like, right, so like drugs and alcohol and things like that can really mess up a child. Right? And you're talking 2 weeks after conception to 8 weeks, where the child can have severe lifelong problems because of alcohol or drugs or anything else. That's a short period of time, is it not? That can happen. All right? And it's a critical period, all right? We also have critical periods of time also that environmental influences can have impact, obviously devastating for an infant. Structural development of the arms and legs. The development of them are 3 to 8 weeks. Heart structure, 2 to 6 weeks. Physical structural problems can occur to the central nervous system, 2 to 5 weeks. Eyes, 3 to 8 weeks. The mouth, 7 to 12 weeks. Okay? That's all what's happening to the baby. All right? Okay, prenatal hazards, all right? Okay, so any substance such as drug, chemical, virus, and other factor that cause a birth defect It's called a teratogen. A teratogen. Teratogen. Words are hard. Okay. All right. So here's some common ones. Okay, like measles, mumps, and rubella. All right. So if the mother gets these, here's some of the birth defects. All right, like blindness, deafness, heart defects, brain damage. Okay. Let's say the mother uses marijuana. What can that do to the baby? All right. Irritability, nervousness, tremors. Infant is easily disturbed and startled. Cocaine. It can decrease the baby's height, low birth weight, respiratory problems, seizures, learning difficulties. Infant is difficult to soothe. How about alcohol? Well, that can cause fetal alcohol syndrome, intellectual disabilities, delayed growth, facial malformations, and learning difficulties. How about this? Even caffeine can cause miscarriages and low birth weights. All right. Nicotine, miscarriages, low birth weights, mercury, intellectual disabilities, high water temperatures, increased chance of neural tube defects. So all these things can actually cause problems with birth, okay, and can cause the problems with the child. All right. One of the most common ones is fetal alcohol syndrome, FAS, right? And we've learned about this a little bit in some of our worksheets. Okay. So there's the fetal period also. It's a period of tremendous growth, lasting about 8 weeks after conception until birth. All right, where weight increases about 1 ounce at 2 months, and an average of a little over 7 pounds at birth. Right, so 8 weeks is the fetal period, but then weight increases. Right, about 1 ounce at 2 months. It's about 1 ounce, but then at birth, right, it's 7 pounds. Right, baby becomes big. Right, like it's big. So my son, whenever he was born. He was 6 pounds 9 ounces when he was born. When I was born, I was a 10-pound baby. Okay, I was a 10-pound baby. Okay, all right, and they said that I was born early. That's what my brother was too. He's like this big around. Yeah, so it's freaking scary. So they said I was born early. So. Anyway, all right. So what is the age of viability for a child? All right, to be born. All right. Usually, what they want is they want a woman to get to, or the baby to get to 38 weeks. Okay. If it's before 38 weeks, it's usually a preterm. Okay. And it may need life support to survive. Okay. But for it to be the age of viability, it's usually between 22 and 26 weeks. All right, the odds of survival increase 10% at 22 weeks and up to 85% at 26 weeks. All right, for the child to survive. When a miscarriage occurs, it's likely caused by a genetic defect in the way the embryo or fetus is developing that will not allow the infant to survive. In other words, there really isn't there when there's a miscarriage, the mother really didn't do anything wrong. Okay, and a lot of times when you see a miscarriage, and I've seen this just in women in my life, is they tend to blame themselves when there's a miscarriage, and there's really nothing wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just something that happens in life when there's a miscarriage, especially somebody who's longed to have a child. And they miscarry a baby. So when we're talking about human development, it's very important to know that there are outside environmental issues that affect the development, human development, all throughout life, and that starts early, right? 2 to 8 weeks in the womb can hurt or help lifelong. That's scientifically proven. That's not Mr. Croy's opinion. That's scientifically proven that it helps, hurts, can hurt if there's outside environmental issues to hurt somebody, and it could affect them the rest of their life. So take that into consideration, right? And this is part of psychology. It's learning the human development and the life cycle to help us understand why people are the way they are. Okay? And we need to take that into consideration, especially when somebody may have mental health issues or problems, right? There could have been something in that 2 to 8 week period that happened traumatically for the mother. That's an outside source for the individual that they didn't know anything about, right? That caused them to be that way. That's affecting them while they're 30. Okay? Y'all following me? And we never ever consider that. We consider it more now, but we didn't 20 years ago. Okay? All right, so there's no worksheet today for this. All right? I'm most likely going to lecture tomorrow and give you a worksheet tomorrow, though. All right? And so we can continue on with human development. All right? And then next week we'll deal with human development as well. All right? Y'all have any questions? Wasn't this fun today?
I have one question.
Yay! All right.